Hi. I am not a BTS fan per se. I describe myself more as BTS-Curious. I have a lot of respect for what they've accomplished in the past decade, especially with how far they've advanced K-pop into the world. As someone that grew up in a time when nobody knew about Korea, I can't help but feel some level of appreciation for how they've helped to elevate Korea's presence. Even though I've never actively sought out their content, living in Korea, you simply cannot avoid them. I realized I knew the names of all seven members just through general pop culture osmosis. These days, it's common knowledge that BTS completed their military service and were preparing for a massive comeback. Their comeback stage in Seoul didn't feel like an isolated event within the K pop industry, but more like a national activity. So I was curious to watch this documentary to learn more about their journey back and participate in this sort of cultural moment. A quick note before I dive in, since I run a mostly Korean movie review channel, I am not a K-pop expert. I will frame my discussion around the documentary's presentation, the narrative structure, etc. And mainly talk about the points that stood out to me as a curious BTS observer. First, this is not an intro to BTS. So if you're interested in watching this to understand the basics of BTS and how they got formed, who the members are, why they are even so popular, then this really isn't the documentary for you. This is also not a concert film, so you're not going to get much of their performances other than very short clips from their past. This documentary is best suited for their fans. It's very focused on the preparation process for their latest album release, while showing some fun behind the scenes with the members. We start where the members are in LA for 2 months getting ready for their new album. It felt as though they were laying down these tracks even as the massive hype train was barreling forward. Maybe it's ignorance on my part, but I assume that artists of BTS's stature, you would have like hundreds of producers lining up to present their finished tracks, and BTS could just choose among them. But instead, I was pleasantly surprised to see that there's a lot of discussion, experimentation, deliberation involved in the group trying to figure out what the album's core identity would be. You still see some of the K-pop machinery because they have a fixed schedule they have to work towards, even if the songs are not even finalized. But I do understand that sometimes a hard deadline can be an effective catalyst to get artists to do and complete their work. Pacing and location wise, from a filmmaking perspective, I thought the director spent way too much time in LA. Everything I needed to get from the LA portion, I already had it figured out in 30 minutes or so. Like seeing the creative grind, the members forming a brotherhood, the struggle of trying to produce that new album. I think part of the issue was that visually, the LA portion was somewhat stagnant because most of the filming was taken in a single location. Also, the pacing felt a bit inverted. Since this is a documentary about the album Arirang, I thought the sense of urgency would be amplified the closer we got to the release date. But instead, the countdown is only on the screen when they're in the LA portion. But once they arrived in Korea, that urgency was somewhat dissipated and replaced with a feeling of comfort, them being in their familiar surroundings. When instead, I was expecting even more of a rush to happen as they try to get to the finish line. So while it was nice to see them relaxed, it kind of robbed the film from its narrative momentum that you would expect leading up to such a high stakes launch. I found the interviews in the first half to be lacking in depth. There were some good nuggets of information from the documentary itself, especially their reactions to the Arirang concept and trying to find the right balance between incorporating Korean elements into the album. Those were the most insightful. Their reactions overall, I thought mirrored the general public's reaction when we first heard about Arirang. However, I found the interview format itself to be uninspiring. The sideways close up taken in LA from a moving car, it really felt restrictive. And aside from RM, it didn't feel like the members were sharing much beyond surface level comments. Until at least they returned to Korea, and finally, there seemed to be some rapport with the director. And only then do we get the most insightful lines. Of course, the best parts were when the members are just chatting through themselves and not via the interviews. I did, however, appreciate the use of the old school camcorders in LA. I read that the director handed these out to their members to capture some more candid moments. It felt like a nod to the more rudimentary footage that the members used to take of one another, and it did give the family vacation feeling as they were spending time in LA. If I had to pick a member that left a lasting impression, Suga is the standout for me. From the outside, he's always been the quietest member, and I would say he stood out the least to me until now. I think his energy is perfectly exemplified in the scene where J-Hope and V are dancing, and Suga has his head on the table and not interested in partaking at all. When he does speak, though, I felt his comments were very critical and on point, and I found his quiet authority and contribution to the album's direction to be the most surprising and impressive. Overall, while it was very interesting to witness the process, I cannot help but feel the documentary left me a bit wanting. I caught brief glimpses of their inner thoughts, but the documentary overall did not have a cohesive narrative. I'm sure if you're a fan, you're gonna enjoy just hanging out with the group. But as a neutral observer, I wanted to understand the emotional weight of returning after such a long hiatus, and I didn't get quite the depth that I was seeking. Whether you're a diehard fan or a casual observer like me, it's undeniable that their return marks a new chapter in K-pop. If you want to know more about how one of the biggest albums in 2026 came together, then this will serve its purpose. But it never transcends its function as an album companion piece. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.